This is part 6 of Unit 4, and again we're talking about the growth of America as a nation. And today I want to, in this lecture, I want to talk about the revolution that's going to take place in transportation. Just to kind of introduce here, we're going to have railroads beginning. We're going to have increased traffic along the National Road and other roads, and also the building of several canals. That's going to increase transportations of goods and, of course, the sharing of ideas as well. One of the things to note about this, as people start to travel more across the country and goods are sold to more and more people throughout the country, America begins to again become a modern nation, a unified nation, an American nation. Before this revolution in transportation, most people lived and died within 10 miles of where they were born. That's about all the world that they saw. They didn't move very much. Now, when you have railroads and you have better roads and you have these canals with steamships and so forth, people are going to move and see more, and they're going to be exposed to more, and they're going to get a sense of national unity rather than just, you know, my local area, particularly my state. So that's an important thing. This revolution in transportation, again, takes us from being individual people or individual small groups to unifying us as a country. The National Road is one of the things we've mentioned before that does this. This is kind of like the interstate of the day again. It connects the east with the west, and that is along where many of the goods and services are exchanged. It again is kind of like the interstate transportation system of the time. You just need to know kind of what the National Road is. The Erie Canal is what connects kind of the Midwest to the Pacific Ocean. It was a man-made canal at the time. Kind of interesting how this was built. It wasn't built with money from the government. It was built with selling bonds to people. Basically, people would buy a bond, give their money, and then years later they would cash in their bond and get their money back plus interest, kind of like you guys get with your grandma and grandpa give you savings bond, kind of along the same lines. This was a source of very great national pride because it was an engineering feat, and people said, you know, I helped build that. And it really, the other thing you need to know is it really reduced the time to ship goods and the price then to ship goods. And it really, and this is one of the things, you should write this down for sure, that really helped the economy because it made it a lot faster and cheaper to ship goods. That means people are more likely to buy and sell then. That's an important part to remember as well. Railroads are going to expand. Some of the first railroads are built starting in the 1830s, and it really takes off. And within 20 years, we have something like 30,000 to 40,000 miles of track. And even though they had to overcome some obstacles to technology and terrain and things like that, they do that. And the other thing to note is most of the railroads are built in the north. That's an important thing to remember. Again, primarily because the north is, you know, where the commerce is taking place that needs the railroads to ship in the raw materials. Then we turn them into finished products and ship the finished products out. That's primarily taking in the north, and so that's why the north has most of the railroads. But all of these are part of the transportation revolution. And the other thing that this does is it increases the likelihood that people are going to take risks to make it rich, make an invention to change society or make society or life better, and you can become wealthy. It's going to just create this entrepreneurial ideal society where people have access to money and are willing to try to take risks to make wealth for themselves, but also benefit the country, because there's so much success going on. It's kind of the American dream, the rags to riches story. There's a lot of that going on as well, and that's important to understand. And again, the underlying theme here is all this is going to unify our country, give us a sense of nationalism or love of your country. Look what Americans can do when they put their mind to it. We can build the Erie Canal. We have this invention. We can do this. Okay? And it makes us a unified country. And gives us a feeling also, we're going to start hearing the word manifest destiny. The idea that we're destined to be a great country, that we are unstoppable when we work together. These kind of events are showing that and bringing us a little bit closer together. We were talking about the transportation revolution. There's another revolution that takes place. It's called the market revolution. This is a very important term to know. It just means there's a big change in how we do business or our economy. And there are three things or three parts to it I'll kind of take you through. The first part is the part that we already talked about a little bit. The improvements in transportation just made it so much easier to ship goods in and out, to get the natural resources that you needed to make products. It just means there's a lot more things being moved around the country, or more goods being bought and sold, because we have transportation now that makes it possible. Before, you were kind of restricted to where you bought stuff because you couldn't get very far. But now with the improvements in transportation, goods, you can get a dress, made in New York, or even in Paris. It can be shipped, someplace out in the Midwest. You could do those kinds of things because of the improvements in transportation. And it just means that there's a lot more things we can do now that we have this improvement in how goods can be shipped. Commercialization is also taking place, which means we're going to produce goods specifically to sell. We're not just producing goods as extra, like here I made an extra quilt that I can barter for something. I'm doing it to make a profit. That's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to sell things that I make. We're commercializing it, kind of like, sometimes people say the commercialization of Christmas. I'm doing things with the intent, purpose to sell. I'm making products to sell for consumption by people. And some things to remember about this as well. This destroys the barter system. A lot of times prior to the 1830s, 40s, and 50s, you could buy things with barter. Hey, I've got an extra pair of shoes. You give me those pants over there. Or, hey, I have extra grain. Can I use that to buy, a ham or something like that? Okay? Now we have cash only, like we have today. Okay? You can't go barter. Well, you can, but very frequently can you go barter, for exchange. This is very different. Much of our early history, remember, we had these very small rural communities where people did business by exchanging. Here's a bushel of apples for a dress, or whatever the case may be. Barter made it very hard to do business because there's no set rules. Somebody could be a better negotiator, and they could have to get a dress for half a barrel of apples, or whatever the case may be. So we have the change in that. Make sure this is important. Make sure you know that the market revolution gets people where we're buying things with cash, and so the exchange of money becomes more and more important. Also, business changed as well. We go away from the small mom and pop shop to large merchants, wealthy guys owning things. Okay, and that's important to know. We're not going to have a small business that maybe 3 or 4 people work at, and they're all related or very close friends. What we're going to do is, I'm going to be a wealthy merchant, and I might have 100 people working for me, and I don't even know your name anymore, and I don't have a close connection to you. That's important because it destroys the personal relationship between the owner and his workers. And that means that workers are going to start to be treated worse because I'm not friends with you, because I don't spend time with you. You become almost like a part in a machine to me. I don't know you. All I care is that you help me make money. You operating a sewing machine, for example, that creates dresses that I sell to make money. I don't know anything about you. I don't care about your family, and that leads to me be very cruel to you. I almost treat you like a spare part that I can throw away. So if you get hurt on the job, I just throw you away and get someone else to do it. That really didn't happen before because people work so close together. They had a relationship. They would never really treat people that way. But the market revolution and the commercialization process destroys that. So you can see that's a pretty big change. Businesses are getting bigger. We're only accepting cash so that business is easier to do. And we're producing more and more goods that we can ship across the country. The third part of it is also important. Industrialization. That's mass producing goods. That's the tail end of it. That's the next step. We're going to have steam-powered machines that are going to produce things. And of course, first, it's going to be textile factories. But we're producing things in mass quantities, which is going to make them cheaper, which means we're going to be able to sell them more. But this is the first time that America is going to flirt with factories, that we're going to have a factory system where people earn wages for money. And we'll talk more about that in class as well. But that's a big change as well. And that's the third part. Okay? What really is significant to know about this is this dramatically changes Americans' lives. They start to move more to the cities where the factories are. It's called urbanization. They start to have more free time. And what do they do with their free time is important. People do different things. That's where sports starts to develop a little bit. More gambling, these kind of things, because people have money now where they never had money before. There's lots of other things that change about their lives that you'll need. That's on your study guide. But this is I believe we're on part 6 now of Unit 4, which talks about the transportation and the market revolutions and how they changed America. And basically it's becoming more and more of a modern country. People moving to cities, our businesses are getting bigger, we are producing more and more products, but that is leaving our workers behind. We're treating our workers less and less because they're no longer our close friends and family members that we worked in a close-knit relationship. It's more separate than that, and because of that we often treat them pretty poor.